not just about what the body wants or what the body likes, but also how the body will feel afterwards, right? And do you find that this is also applies to things in terms of that people should be avoiding with certain disease? What do they do if, they're diabetic and they shouldn't have sugar, but they really feel like having sugar? What should they do in a case like that?
Yeah, so that's a complicated question with a complicated answer, but I'll try to simplify it. Let's say that you're a diabetic. You can have a little sugar when you're diabetic. It's not like you can't ever have sugar, right? And so you have to be more careful about how you do it, but you don't have to deny yourself completely, generally speaking, right? And so don't get in the all or nothing kind of thinking with it, which is what people like to do. It's all or nothing, And for people that have a restricted diet, whether that's because they're diabetic or they're celiac or, they have other food allergies, what tends to happen is that people focus on what I can't have. And so again, restrict, binge, restrict, binge. So if you can take, you will have had experience, I'm sure, that you've had this food that, you're allergic to or isn't good for your body in some way, and you've overdone it and you know how that feels. So I think it's important to remind yourself, when I had that, I really didn't feel all that well. And I suggest that people find things, because there's so much wonderful, incredible food that you can make no matter what diet you're on. Diet in terms of like physical health diet, not restricted calorie diet, that can be delicious and enjoyable. And so it might take a little extra time for these people to really discover, with people that don't have any restrictions, they still have problems too. But the thing is to really spend a little bit of time exploring the world of food and take your focus not on what you can't have, but on what you can have, and making that really pleasurable.
Yes.
Because that's what you're seeking is pleasure. What you think you can't have, you think is the most pleasurable ever. But if we can, it's a mindset. It's stinking thinking, basically. And so we can let that go and go, okay, well, let's focus on this. So there's a concept in Buddhism that I will be writing about next week, but I really, it's what I was going to write about this week, but it didn't happen. But it's about skillful effort, right? And I really love it because it basically says, if something doesn't serve you and isn't skillful and harms you in some way, don't do it. I know that sounds very simple, but boy, is that difficult for people, And if something is supportive to your well-being and is supportive to your health and your happiness and your joy, do more of that. It's so simple, but so people make it so complicated, right? And it's not. It doesn't have to be, right? This right effort thing is just, I love the idea of right effort, because we get so focused on what we can't have, what we can't do, or, these ideas of what we think we need in order to be happy, instead of focusing on, well, you can have this, and this makes you happy. Why don't you go over here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it really is about, even like you say, even if you are diabetic, maybe a bite of the brownie would be okay. And that's where you have to kind of listen and tune in, and what is the right amount. So that's important. Something else I'm thinking about in that category, or, the fact that we have so many addictive foods in the supermarkets nowadays. So on the one hand, your body, or would it then rather be your mind, I don't know, telling you I need potato chips or I need chocolate or whatever it is. And some people have reported, and I also experienced that if I do take only one bite, I want it the next day and the next and the next. So it's almost that addictive cycle. So is that okay? Should we just go with that? What should we do?
Yeah. So I really encourage people to bring those kinds of food into my class, and then we eat them mindfully together. So like people will tell me, I can't just eat a potato chip or 3 potato chips or whatever it is. And I'm like, well, that's, not true. Number one, anybody can just eat 3 potato chips. Not that that's what you need to do or have to do, but we have all these ideas of, I can't just take 1 bite, or I can't just have a little bit. I can't do this. And there's a lot of reasons for that because, like you said, food companies make food, and I don't want to say addicting because there's a lot of controversy about that. But what happens is on some of these highly processed foods is that you take a bite and it's got a big burst of flavor and then the flavor disappears. It's meant to do that. So you want more. Okay. And so there's never going to be a sense of satisfaction with these foods, which is why you keep eating and eating and eating and eating, because they're empty. They're empty of substance. They're empty of the ability to satisfy, because they're not designed to do that. You could eat a whole bag of potato chips and your body's like, well, you didn't really feed me, because it's not got a lot of nutritional value, right? So we have to consider that. But we can enjoy our potato chips. And so, but a lot of these foods also we eat unconsciously. We don't eat mindfully. It's like, I don't want to eat potato chips mindfully. And when you do eat it mindfully, you see why, right? Because I ruin junk food for people all the time. I say, bring it in. Let's eat it mindfully. I never tell anybody don't eat something, right? You can eat anything you want, but I want you to savor it. I want you to pay attention to the taste. I want you to really taste it when you eat it, right? It's the unconscious eating that gets us, triggered and, into this repetitive, eating. Yes. So if you stop and you taste it, what people often discover is that they'll start tasting the things besides that burst of flavor. They'll start tasting the metallic taste in their mouth, or the preservatives, or the colorings, or the chemicals of some kind in their mouth. So one of the people in my last class had a thing with Diet Coke. Diet Coke, Diet Coke, Diet Coke, Diet Coke. And she's like, I just can't quit drinking Diet Coke, and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, you don't have to quit drinking it. But she started taking note of the symptoms that she had when she would drink Diet Coke. Now, granted, I didn't know this, but she was drinking 3, mind you, big styrofoam cups from Sonic every day. Wow. And so she was drinking a lot of Diet Coke. So I said, she tried a lot of things like cutting down, doing this and whatever. And I said, when I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke, okay? And because I had a lot of addictive behaviors, and then I was very oral. I don't know, I had this oral fixation kind of, and Diet Coke was just something that I got into. And I went on my first long-term meditation retreat, which was 9 days long, and there wasn't any Diet Coke there. So when I got out, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a Diet Coke. And I had been practicing mindfulness. I was in silence practicing mindfulness for 9 days for the first time. And I came out and I'm like, I'm going to have my Diet Coke. And I was like, And I'm like, oh my God, what is in that? I think I had tasted it for the first time because my taste buds had not been having that bombardment of Diet Coke on my mouth for over a week. And when I had it again, I hated it.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually really didn't like it because my taste buds had just in 9 days had an opportunity to reacclimate, and because we can get kind of acclimated to certain tastes, particularly if we're eating a lot of highly processed food. And so I said, hey, do you want to do an experiment? Totally up to you. Don't drink it for a week. And then come back next week, it was our last class, and bring a Diet Coke with you. Mm-hmm. And let's see how it tastes. Mm-hmm. In that week of not having, so she said, yeah, I definitely want to do that. So she didn't have it for a week. And she noticed all of her habit patterns around, I go first thing in the morning, I go to Sonic. At noon, I go to Sonic. On my way home from work, I go to Sonic. And she started getting water instead. She was drinking water. And she said she stopped having shakes. She stopped being hungry at night, right before bed. She started sleeping better. She started thinking better. I mean, she just, through the week, she was listing all of these things that she noticed from not having had the Diet Coke for a week. And she came back and she sat there in class and she had her first few sips of Diet Coke. And she said, it's okay. It's not overly terrible, but she said it's not really all that great. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that I really need to do that anymore. And so it was like, for her, it was like just setting it aside for a week and noticing what the benefits were and then tasting it again really helped her overcome this kind of, I need this, because a lot of what we do is habit, right? We get into these habit patterns. Our bodies are set, and habits can be really hard to break. Mm-hmm. Right. So particularly as fast as we're moving in this culture, in this world, we just go into habit patterns. And so breaking out of those habit patterns really requires mindfulness, really requires stopping, slowing down, paying attention.
And I guess most of the time when people are eating these types of food, they are sitting in front of the television, so they're not really paying attention, or they are, like you mentioned earlier, they are eating it very quickly because they're not supposed to have it, or while the fridge door is open, or while they're standing, and then you're not really tasting it. So that's the key, according to you, to break that cycle. Be mindful, eat anything you want, just be mindful while doing it, and you will be. You're always you telling us, in your classes, you've told about many people who realize that the foods that they absolutely love, like you said with the Diet Coke, it's actually really not good. They don't like the foods that they're obsessed about previously.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.